without these certain social structures that we have, welfare, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and all the not-for-profits that exist, we would be looking out the door and thinking there were maybe seeing food lines, people living outside, people without 99 weeks of unemployment. There would be people literally without means, maybe without homes, without shelters. And I think worse than that, if there's a dignity that's hurts people, I think mostly to the quick, to their heart, it's the inability for somebody of any age to take care of their responsibilities, their family, their children, man or woman. You would see more of that. And I think that's coming if we don't change the way we do that, well, the way we do run our world. And so you say, how do you do that? Well, I mean, I know where we live. We live in the United States that has always had a pretty... Anybody here read Ayn Rand lately? You waded through that? I did too, so. Well, there's two, you know, it depends what you read. If you read Atlas Shrugged. Or,
I couldn't finish Atlas Shrugged.
Yeah, well, you know.
But I read Fountainhead. We just actually had a night where we watched the Fountainhead movie.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. You know, I don't subscribe to all that stuff, but it's some of it I do. I mean, I agree. But the point is, we live in a free market system. We live in a system that's kind of been born out of the vitality and energy and enthusiasm and creativeness that has allowed us as a society to have a value-added life. This country has provided the highest standard of living for more people than any other country in the history of the world. And part of that is because we have understood, I think, even if we didn't know it, we knew it implicitly, that there is a line between government control and regulation, which is necessary, and the kind of unleashing of all those human things that make us do what we do. And I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that it's about money. It's a piece of it. It's also about feeling as though your energies are your own, that you're rewarded for your effort. And as a guy who's had over 450 employees and done pretty well, I think part of what and this is out of Ayn Rand's book, and forget that I told you I read it. It is a big thing, but it's you can't love the light bulb without and hate the generator. I mean, it's all part of the same blend that makes this country fit together. And what I said earlier, I'm not mad at Mr. Obama at all. I actually find him to be a deeply sympathetic and empathetic guy, but misguided in the sense that you cannot transfer from one body of people to another body of people over time and take care of people the way he wants to and have a sustainable economic system that rewards people based on their energy and their hard work. I think it tends to unwind a few things. Unemployment's an interesting thing. That right now we've got 99 weeks of unemployment. They've extended it again, and they may do it again. There are studies that have been done that show that longer extensions create more unemployment, that the underground economy grows, that people lose their skill sets, that people don't look as hard. So all this leads me to what I was going to say, and that is that suffering and being the recipient of your hard work in a positive way and also in a negative way when you don't do what you're supposed to or what you need to do, that you also somehow suffer the consequences. And I wasn't taught in my life to be, that the purpose of life was to be happy. I was taught the purpose of life was to be useful, to be productive, and to be personally responsible. And when my dad died, it never occurred to me there was anybody but me to take care of my mom and my 4 sisters, and we did it all together. So I'm suggesting that the fact that my neighbor signs a bad mortgage with the bank, and I didn't, and I paid my bills, and they were victims, and the bank was a bad guy, which could all be true, doesn't necessarily mean that I have to take care of my neighbor. That what's fair isn't always fair. What your heart tells you what's fair sometimes has to be overridden by what your mind tells you really works in the real world. So I see a lot of that, and I think that having two little kids, my daughter Grace is 22 months and Emerson's 3 and 6 months, and it may seem corny and cliche-ish, but maybe I'm lucky enough I could take care of them the rest of their lives. That's not what I want for them. I don't want them to get up and do nothing. I want them to know that they have to get up and do something. You guys are in this great place because you worked hard someplace else and you wound up here because you rose to the top. And you can be proud of that, but and you'll go on. I would like my kids to have the joy that I've had, which is not making a money or being successful, but actually knowing that you were the element in your life that created your life, that made it as good as as you want it to be. And conversely, moral consequences matter. That's what makes banking work, moral consequences. And when you have all these different bailout programs, some of them are good, some of them aren't so good, what you wind up with is a society that's decided that the government is the backstop of every problem. And that what we've seen in the last couple of years in this kind of attempt to stop this, what people think is this downturn in our economy, potentially a pretty good depression, and I'm sure that's true, that the government picks up the tab, and you take on all this future debt to keep things stable for the meantime. It kind of denies in some ways the existence of a business cycle, but there is one. But this one's more severe because it was, as you guys know, it was not just a multi-billion, it was trillions of dollars with leveraged instruments and you know, the rating companies that bundled houses and took them away from banks. The banks thought they gave away the risk. They sold them to some little town in Australia, and everybody's wondering what happened. Then you get AIG has 40-to-1 leverage on their assets, or in many cases nothing to one. They had unlimited leveraging, and all of those things were a train wreck waiting to happen and a bubble waiting to happen. And I think that this administration is trying to recognize that and fix some of that. But I also think that because of the political system that we live in, there's a certain energy and move towards fixing things today and tomorrow. This stimulus bill that is $816 billion now with interest, which was largely a government self-stimulus bill. And a lot of redecorating by the government, but less than $100 billion actually went to the things that Mr. Obama decided to do a couple of weeks ago. Bridges, roads, infrastructure. Those are the kinds of things that historically have created jobs. A lot of the other money went as pork, as a kind of a social agenda opportunity, and I actually think had they spent that money more wisely, we'd have a much healthier economy because they were going to spend it anyway than we do now. But, I don't mean to get into some diatribe here, but anybody have any questions? You're smart people. I know most of you know more than I do, so you could probably beat me up pretty good if you want. I don't mind. You've got the white-haired guy here.
Yeah, exactly. I'm older than you. Not a lot.
Not a lot, maybe.
I'm a lifelong Democrat, and I voted for Sherry Bowler, just the first Republican I ever voted for. I liked him a lot.
I did too.
I didn't think he had a viable candidate, for one thing. He may have voted otherwise. I also voted for Mike Arcuri, and I'm incredibly disappointed with Michael, and we have a mutual friend who I respect a lot, who thinks really highly of you, and is Hamilton grad.